Hey, so what I'd like to do in a couple of little videos now is talk about modes. And people get really intimidated, unnecessarily so I think, when it comes to modes. But if you're going to take the dead at all seriously and really get into playing the dead, you got to grapple with modes. Most people think that, oh, that's the business of, Jerry, the lead player. He's got to deal with modes. And definitely you do. If you want to be playing Garcia's licks and you want to be a lead guitar player, you need to be able to understand and use modes. But I think it's also the key to understanding what Weir's doing when it comes to their long jam songs, like Dark Star, the other one, Playin in the Band. In those songs, the chords that they have in their verses are really simple. They often tend to be two chords. When it comes to the long breakout jams that go on for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or even more, obviously the rhythm guitar player can't be doing just those two chords over and over again. If the other one jam sections had if they did that for 15 minutes without a change in chords, you're going to go crazy. You're going to just be bored to death. Now, you'd fall asleep if you were playing it on stage. And you're not going to get enough mileage simply by changing the rhythm a bit or changing the voicings. You got to have other chords available. You got to be doing something else. How do you think about that stuff? Well, the key is modes, I think. All right, so here's the way I think it helps to begin thinking about modes. Modes are just modifications. They're modifications of a scale. So let's start with a plain old scale. Take a A major scale. Let's get in the habit of thinking about the notes and the number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 would be the octave. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Now, we can hold constant. The A is our starting point, and the A is our end point, and we can modify that scale in countless ways. We could take the 1, we could skip the 2 altogether and go right to the 3. We could take the 2 but flatten it. We could play the 1, flatten the 2, then play the 2, then go to the 3. We could play the 1, flatten the 3, play the 4, sharp the 4, play the 5, flat the 6. Endless combinations. A zillion combinations. Somebody out there, you calculate how many possible permutations. In the history of music, there have come to be 7, what I think of as officially sanctioned modifications of a major scale. Used enough, known about from ancient times, of ways of modifying a major scale in a way that's deserving of their own name. So though we will be playing with A as our basic starting note and establishing ourselves as in the A key, we can modify it in lots of different ways. Here's a pretty common way. Even if you don't have modal terminology in place, you probably know this modification. So instead of playing, you probably know how to play this. Yeah, that's a modification. It's one that's actually got various names. On the one hand, we call it an A minor. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Every single note here is a natural. We've gotten rid of all the sharps. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Yeah, A minor. What's its fancy modal term? Yeah, it's deserving of a modal term. Its fancy modal term is that's the Aeolian mode. So you already know 2 modes. If you go with the unmodified version, we call that Ionian. If you go with this one, where you turn it into all flats, all naturals, it's Aeolian. In particular, what you're doing to turn a major into a minor is you're flatting the 3rd, you're flatting the 6th, and you're flatting the 7th. Part of the advantage of the way we're going to do it that I'm going to try to get you to see is you can forget having to remember how each mode actually differs. Oh, am I flatting the 3 and the 6 in this one, or am I flatting the 7th and the 6th? Which is which? You can forget all that with the little trick I'm going to show you. But the next thing to do is, let's get the names of the modes out. Let's get them in place. So the official names are Ionian. We mentioned that. That's the unmodified version, your basic major scale. Here come the rest of the names, and it's important to remember their order. So Ionian is first, then Dorian second, 3 is Phrygian, 4 is Lydian, 5 is Mixolydian, 6 is Aeolian, we just talked about as well, and 7 is Locrian. We're just going to throw Locrian out and ignore it. It's a very bizarre modification. I'm not sure anybody really uses it. And it also breaks up the tidy little story I'm going to teach you about how to use modes and the short little device for working with them with ease. So we'll just ignore Locrian. Now what we noticed when we modified that A to the A minor, you can ask yourself, yeah, I can remember it by remembering that pattern. But if I got a whole bunch of patterns to remember, I'm going to find myself thinking about the shapes and the patterns instead of the music. Is there an easier way to do it than having to memorize now 6 different patterns? Well, if you know the major pattern, you also, if you've been working at it, you figured out how to extend that, say A major, up and down the neck and play that A major scale all over the neck, up here and down there. Essentially, you can think of the fretboard as having, talking about A major, a big map of all the notes and all the different locations where you can play it. The tip I'm about to show you is how to make use just of that map. And the only difference will be where it starts. Basically, whether you're shifting that map this way or shifting it that way. And how do we do it? Well, let's get our device for remembering the order of modes in place. So here's just a silly mnemonic I came up with to help me remember the order. I don't play like Maya Angelou. I, Ionian, D, Dorian, don't play Phrygian, like Lydian, Maya, Mixolydian, Angela, Aeolian, Lou. So, I don't play like Maya Angelou. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian. Now what's the point of that? To put it to use, here's how you do it. You ask yourself, if you're confronted with Aeolian, you say, well, Aeolian means 6. So, well, it doesn't mean 6, but it corresponds to the 6. What scale, what major scale would I have to play such that A would end up in the 6th position? Well, C. And that's just what we'd expect because the A minor scale is the same notes as are found in a C major scale. And it works for the other ones too, leaving Locrian aside. So, A Mixolydian. What major key does that correspond to? Well, ask yourself, since Mixolydian is 5, what major scale would I have to play such that A would end up in the 5th position? Oh, D. Yeah. A Mixolydian ends up with the same notes as D major. Let's try another one. D Dorian. All right, Dorian is 2, so what scale would I have to play that would have D in the 2nd position? Oh, C. In a C major, the Dorian would be the key note. Say Dorian would be the key 2nd note. And that's all it takes. What you now know to do is to simply remove yourself the burden of having to remember the patterns of each of those modifications, figure out instead what the corresponding major scale is, and then to make use of it, you need to take the name of the scale you started with, the note that the scale was being modified from, and make that the focus of your playing. So let's take A Mixolydian, because the Dead use Mixolydian all over the place. That corresponds to, it has the same notes as D major, but you want to make A the focus. After all, it's a modification of an A scale. So though the notes are going to be the notes found in the D major scale, A is going to be the focus. You want to be hovering around A, somehow making A the most essential part, either by starting your riffs on A or concluding them on A or just getting A in the mix. And consider this. Whoops. All right, a little Dark Star-esque riff. That's A mixolydian. All I was doing was I was making use of the notes in the D major scale, but simply focusing on the A.